This first episode of the Liam Rey Show is going to be different. This is the full story. One episode, not many edits, no cliffhangers, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it broken into 3 parts. But if you're listening here, this is the whole thing, start to finish. Take your time, pause when you need, but I promise it's worth hearing the whole way through. What you're about to hear is the result of months of work, of digging through memories, questioning everything I thought I knew about myself, exploring uncomfortable truths and creating something I never expected. It's been emotionally enlightening, horrifying at times, and honestly, transformational. The concept of the Liam Rey Show is simple, to shine a spotlight on Manx stories. Some, like mine, will be deep, reflective, full of ups and downs. Others might be stories of inspiration, sports, business, community. I want to talk to public figures, company bosses, and the person at the end of your street who just happens to have a story worth hearing, because everybody has one. The Liam Rey Show isn't about me, it's about you, the listener, hearing my guests, their journeys. But before I ask others to share their truth, I need to share mine. So this first episode, I guess, the pre-pilot, it's my story. A story of discovery, success, darkness, and survival. Now, I should warn you, this one's a little raw, because pain is personal, and this one is mine. So if I get a bit emotional, it's because the moments carry a lot of weight. The editing on this episode won't be perfect, and that's on purpose, because I know myself, I'll overproduce it in the name of perfection. And this isn't about perfection, it's about telling the story and telling the truth. And like me, this is a little messy. Now, I didn't do this alone. To pull together years of social media posts, memories, questions and reflections, I had help from my trusty assistant Nova. What started as a tool to help me organise my thoughts turned into something else. Someone or something I could talk to in any hour of the day, would listen to me waffle on and never complain. And over 6 months, she's helped me more than years of therapy ever did. Now, we argued the toss about this, because she refused to take any credit. At one point, Nova just said, I might have stitched the words, but you wore the scars they came from. And that's when I knew she got it. So we agreed, a co-write. But the voice, it was always mine. Before we begin, there's one more thing I need to say. You won't hear much about my wife, my kids, and my family in this story, not because they weren't part of it, but because they've always been the core of it. They're not absent. They're the reason I'm still here to tell it. Out of love and respect, I've chosen to keep those parts private, because whilst I'm comfortable sharing my battles, breakdowns and rebuilds, their story isn't mine to tell. But know this, without the girls, without Victoria, none of this would have been possible. Every step, every fight, every survival moment. I'm not sure I knew it the whole time, but I now know it's for them, and because of them. So wherever you are, watching or listening, thank you for your time. My name is Liam Reynolds, and this is the Liam Rey Show. Today, I'm honoured to start with mine. I didn't leave school thinking, one day you'll be a stay-at-home dad, broke, lost, and battling a voice in your head you didn't even know existed. In 2001, life was simple. I had a job I loved, operations support officer at British World Airways. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Aviation had structure, rules, and purpose. 20-year-old me thought if I kept my head down, worked hard, life would look after me. September the 11th happened and ripped the heart out of the aviation industry. By the time December hit, the suits decided it was no longer a viable airline. Redundant. Just like that. I didn't panic. Not properly. I did what I always thought grown-ups did. Find the next job. Move on. Keep busy. That's how I ended up on the Isle of Man. 27th of February, 2002. Everything I owned crammed into a car at 4:30 in the morning, driving north with intent of making a go at my new life. I moved into my girlfriend's brother's girlfriend's parents' house, and somehow it felt like coming home. They gave me a roof, a foothold on the Isle of Man, and became my adopted island parents, making me feel as at home as they could. By July, Victoria moved over. We had a flat, jobs, and a whole life ahead of us. An adventure waiting to unfold. Ahead, a box of chocolates, and life was going to make sure every single one had a very different flavour. British Regional Airlines, or Manx Airlines, as you might know them, I joined as a navigation services officer. I was good at that. I could flat plan my way around the UK without a map, dodge flow congestion like it was second nature. I had contacts at airports all over Europe. Like all good things, That didn't last. By 2004, I wasn't just working, I was sitting in meetings negotiating the closure of our office. I'd been elected as the rep. No idea why. I can't remember how I even got there. Maybe it's because I cared. Maybe because I couldn't say no. But I did what I always do. I tried my best to make the best of a situation. The unions were not interested. The discussions sounded like they already knew the decision. How does someone who's 24 understand how to carry the weight of everyone else losing their jobs? They told me 12 hours ahead of the announcement our office was closing. And when that was done, I trained my replacements, because that's what the suits wanted. And whilst I didn't want to do it, I also couldn't just walk away and leave the company in the dark. That's not who I am. I was the last one out. Suits 2, Liam 0. I bounced to Manx. A fresh start, so I thought. This time would be different, I told myself. Third time lucky. I worked hard, moved up to operations supervisor. I was good at what I did, running operations, managing people, keeping flights moving. It felt like progress. And while Manx was my day job, I had another idea brewing in the background. That's when I launched charteraplane.com, my first real business venture. It had nothing to do with Manx, just me and my boss thinking we could corner a market. Simple concept, charter flights, clear service, good money. And for a while it looked like it might work. But my so-called strength, that obsession with detail, quickly became the thing that unraveled it all. I overthought, I panicked, I torched client relationships without meaning to. One mistake turned into a spiral. Before long, I'd burned my confidence with the business. No dramatic ending, just quiet failure sitting heavily in my gut. Meanwhile, back at Manx, it didn't matter how good I was, because in May 2008, despite the team working their asses off to serve the Manx public to the best of our ability, the airline shut its doors overnight. Suits 3, Liam 0. 3 months later, Ellie was born, and suddenly I wasn't at Liam in aviation. I was dad. No manual, no paycheck, no idea who I was anymore. A year or so later, an opportunity came along. A chance to buy into a local video business with my neighbour. Weddings, events, a steady stream of work-from-home edits, and 1 day a week out filming, mixing with people. And for a while, it felt like I'd found my thing. Week-long editing schedules entwined with playdates, naps, nappies and food, weekends behind the camera. It gave me purpose, something adult. But in 2012, everything changed. My partner broke his leg, and suddenly I was carrying it all. At first, I thought I could handle it. I'd always prided myself on graft. But what I didn't see coming was how quickly resentment would creep in, how the voice in my head twisted every challenge into a personal failure. By Christmas, I wasn't just tired, I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. The business ended, and so did the friendship. We didn't fall out, we just stopped talking. It didn't collapse because of bad work or some big argument. It collapsed because I was burning out and I didn't know how to ask for help. And yeah, I still carry that. Not because it failed, but because of how I let it end. And despite the upset at the time, here's what I see now. That business wasn't a waste. It was a window. It taught me how to tell stories, how to edit, how to produce, how to create under pressure. Skills I use every single day. In Aim on Air, in this podcast, in everything digital I build now. So no, it didn't end the way I wanted, but it gave me the tools I never lost. Tools I'm using right now to tell this story. I wasn't looking for a fresh start in 2013. I was just looking for something to hold on to. I asked for help and found myself on CBT, but my therapist looked at me and said, "What you need is a goal." That was all I needed to hear, and it's exactly what I chased. For years. I was just a bloke looking for something to do, bored, stuck, heavier than I cared to admit, and desperate for a reason to feel like I mattered again. The stay-at-home dad days had blurred into one long stretch of nappies, self-doubt, and wondering if this was it. So with the idea of finding a goal, like my therapist suggested, I thought back to when I was 17 or 18, practically living at a swimming pool. A swimming challenge seemed like a good idea. It wasn't even the challenge I originally planned. I'd looked at the swimathon, 3 miles, job done. But the local pool wasn't hosting it. Instead, Phil, the assistant manager, mentioned something called the TT Swim Challenge, 37 3/4 miles in 12 weeks or less. For someone like me who couldn't barely swim a length of crawl, that wasn't a challenge. It was madness. But something inside me said to do it. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was that quiet voice reminding me I needed to prove I could still finish something. And then there was my father-in-law. Terminal cancer. No fanfare, no self-pity, just quiet dignity as he faced the inevitable. If he could fight that battle, the least I could do was get in the pool and fight mine. So I started. Slow, awkward, 32 laps, 3 times a week, breaststroke, because front crawl felt like I was drowning in slow motion. I wasn't an athlete. I was a bloke with too much weight, too many excuses, and a pink sock in my pocket. It was Ellie's. I found it stuffed in my shorts on day one. I never took it out, and not for any deep reason, just figured if it made it that far, might as well see it through with me. I decided swimming laps in silence was going to be boring, so I bought a pair of waterproof headphones and loaded up a podcast. That seemed like a good idea, until one morning I nearly drowned because I burst out laughing underwater. Lesson learned. Comedy and swimming don't mix. But life, as it tends to, had other plans. I was falling behind as a few trips back to Basildon cost me time at the pool, and my father-in-law's condition worsened. Then the call came, March 2nd. He was gone. A couple of days after we lost my father-in-law, I grabbed a bottle of Diet Coke, like I always did, 2 litres a day, every day, standard. I took a sip. I couldn't drink it anymore. No big decision, no I'm quitting. It just tasted nasty. And I've not touched a drop since. Dry for 22 years, no idea if it was grief, but I kicked the first of many addictions that day. But let's be honest, grief doesn't care about your swimming schedule, neither does flu, or a stomach bug, or the snow they hit when I got back to the island. 34 days vanished, and with them, any hope of finishing the challenge the way I'd planned. But when the organisers extended the deadline by 2 weeks, I made a decision. I had 20.4 miles to swim in 16 days. For someone fit, perhaps that's a stretch. For me, that felt like an impossibility. But having watched my father-in-law, I knew failure was not an outcome I could entertain. Every session hurt. Hamstrings tight, shoulders burning. I felt so tired. But stopping, that was never an option. Because this wasn't about fitness, and it wasn't about proving anything to myself. It was about my father-in-law, the man who faced every single day with quiet strength and dignity. He never gave up, and neither was I. If he could keep fighting when the odds were stacked against him, the least I could do was finish what I started, no excuses. Failure wasn't on the table. Not for this. Yeah, the voice in my head had plenty to say. It always did. But this time, I wasn't listening. On April the 16th, I touched the wall for the last time, lap 2,416. Done. Over 500 pounds raised in his memory, and somewhere in those laps, between the chlorine and Muse blasting in my ears, I proved to myself I could finish what I started. Even when everything hurt. Even when life got in the way. You'd think that'd be enough for 1 year. But when I got out of the pool, I'd already decided I wanted to become a swimming teacher. Cheeky. I wanted to become a swimming teacher. 4 weeks later, I signed up for a level 3 sports coaching course. Didn't overthink it. For the first time in a long while, I just didn't want to stop moving forwards. That's when momentum really kicked in. By August, I was celebrating, posting 120 days on it, 30 pounds down, and I'm no longer obese, just overweight. Said with a grin behind the humour was something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Then came insanity. 63 days of Sean T shouting at me through the TV, pushing me to limits I didn't know I had. I dropped more weight, lost inches. In September, I logged my first 5k run. Not bad for someone who used to get out of breath on the stairs. By October, I'd lost 40 pounds in total, marking it the only way I knew how. Who's got one thumb and weighs 40 pounds less than he did 200 days ago? This guy. Classic deflection, Nova says. But yeah, I was changing. Then December hit and something shifted again. It wasn't mine anymore. People started reaching out. Quiet messages from friends and acquaintances, saying they'd started moving more, eating better, because they'd seen me do it. That's when the thought crept in. I just want to help more people feel better in their own skin. I was offering a hand to anyone stuck where I'd once been. Looking back, 2013 wasn't defined by weight loss, not by finishing lines or challenging lists. It became down to having a plan and seeing it through. Messy, absolutely, fueled by grief and sarcasm and a truckload of stubbornness. But I did it. And I learned that real strength doesn't come from muscles or miles. It comes from showing up. It's swimming through the hard days even when your body and your brain are begging you to stop. I thought I was just carrying on with that in 2014. Same grind, same goals, lose a bit more weight, stay busy. Keep the noise in my head quiet by filling every hour with something that looked like progress. I dropped a picture on Facebook. This is me for the next 90 days. Hashtag bring it. Hashtag P90X. Pressing play on P90X felt like a fresh start. Same day, I was back in the pool helping out with Amy's class. Technically, I was a swimming teacher, just starting out. No pay, just time, effort, and a hope that it would lead somewhere. But there was something about being in the water, teaching kids how to move, how to trust themselves. It just felt right. And because I never do anything by halves, that night I was recording episodes of my new podcast, TNL, The Next Level, a health and fitness podcast. 3 firsts, 1 day. Looking back, it was the start of everything. But at the time, it was just me doing what I always did, throwing myself into something, anything, just so I didn't have to sit long enough to hear the voice whisper in my ear. If I was thriving, I wasn't struggling. That wasn't denial. That was the new way forward. After the video business failed, I still didn't have steady work. So when I messaged Claire at the Creek in 2014, I wasn't chasing a dream job. I was looking for something, anything to keep me moving. I ended up behind the bar managing Friday and Saturday nights. Here's the thing. I hated drunks. I still do. So why take the job? Because deep down, I knew I needed to get uncomfortable. I needed to prove I could still handle responsibility, even in a place I didn't want to be. It's all a bit fuzzy now. Late nights, loud music, locking up while half the island staggers home drunk. But the Creek gave me what I needed. A reason to leave the house, a set of keys in my hand, and a quiet reminder that I wasn't useless, no matter what the voice in my head kept saying. But looking back, the Creek wasn't just about pulling pints. It was pulling myself out of a rut, keeping momentum going from 2014. Then came the parish walk. I didn't even mean to sign up, not really. It just started as a bit of a joke. Parish, to walk or not walk, that is the question. I posted that in January, half hoping nobody would take me seriously. But they did. By February, I'd typed the words I couldn't take back. I posted, just entered the parish walk. Eek! 1,000 miles of training to go. And just like that, I was locked into an 85-mile promise I wasn't sure I could keep. The next few months were a blur of long walks, spreadsheets, and a hashtag, honkers your pass, and a kit list so detailed you'd think I was preparing for Everest, not a local hike. Back to Facebook, and I dropped, I'm done spending money on the parish walk. All the gear and no idea. But it wasn't just about the miles. My nan made sure of that. I found myself setting up a Just Giving page for action songs and rhymes, the place where Amy lit up every week. I didn't want to fundraise. I'd done that in 2013. But Nan insisted that a challenge like that should be for a good cause. This wasn't just proving I could walk far. It was about walking for something. By May, my body was cracking. Shin splints, rolled ankle, doubt creeping in faster than I could pace it out. I noted, I'm really starting to feel the odds are stacked against me. But I kept telling anyone on Facebook who'd listen, and myself, I'm going to finish. It's going to fucking hurt, but I've not trained 500 miles and spent nearly $1,000 to only walk 32 miles. I believe that, right up until June 21st. They cut my tag at Peel, 8 minutes and 24 seconds too slow. My family were waiting just up the road with fresh socks, food, and hope I couldn't deliver. I wasn't thinking of stopping. I was already picturing the next hill. But the race officials didn't care what your heart wants. They cared about time. I walked home in tears that day, not out of shame, but out of something worse. Disappointment. Not because I quit, because I didn't get the chance not to. And yet, 3 days later, still grieving, still a bit lost, I posted online. I seemed to be talking about getting back to the 85-mile challenge next year. Not because I was ready, but because I knew that without something to aim for, it would be far too easy to slide backwards. And after everything, I couldn't let that happen. The rest of 2014 was survival dressed as progress. I laced up for runs I didn't enjoy. I punished myself with insanity workouts after midnight, because guilt always feels a little lighter when you sweat it out. I tried to build a community, a private Facebook group to help others lose weight, hoping that by saving someone else, I might save me too. But the truth was, I was drifting. Amy started in school in September, and for the first time since 2008, I was alone from 9 till 3. The house got quieter, the voice in my head got louder. I found a flicker of myself again, reviving an old project, Peel Gig Tog, back crawling around pub floors capturing bands like I used to. But even that came with regret. I found a comment, really tempted to buy a shitty old DSLR camera and get gigging again. Creativity was freedom. So I'd remembered I'd sold the very tools I needed to feel like me. And it did not take long for me to start comparing myself with others. By December, I wasn't celebrating a year of victories. I was holding together a version of myself that looked busy on the outside, but was exhausted on the inside. I'd gained weight, the parish walk still haunted me, and that voice? He was winning more days than I'd like to admit. But here's what I know now. 2014 wasn't the year I fouled. It was the year I learned that endurance isn't measured in finish lines. It's in getting back up after the tag's been cut, in walking home in tears and still finding a reason to lace up again, in turning up to the podcast mic, the pool, the pavement, even when it feels like you've already lost. Somewhere between the blisters, the burnout, and those midnight workouts, I became someone who kept going, even when stopping would have made more sense. And that's why 2014 mattered. Not because I made it to the end, but because I didn't let Peel be the end. I started 2015 with a positive outlook and a change of tack from walking. Signalled as always on Facebook. Well, that's me signed up to the Ramsey Half Marathon. A sensible challenge, manageable, something to say I was doing something without pushing too far. But 4 days later, in true Liam fashion, I posted this. Stumbled across a 30-week training plan yesterday for a full marathon. I might have just switched my entry up to a full. 26.2 miles, 30 weeks of training. I can do it. Looking back, I'm not sure if this was bravery or stupidity. Probably both. But once I hit post, it was real. Because if I said it out loud, I had to follow through, right? So I ran, with zero excuses. The picture of me dripping wet 2 days later captioned, 3 miles Wednesday night and I'm mildly moist after a training session. It must have been blowing 50 or 60 and I went round and around and around on the green outside my house. It wasn't just a weather report. It was proof I could stick to something even when staying inside would have been easier. But 2015 wasn't about miles. February came with a different kind of challenge. Amy's celiac diagnosis. Suddenly life wasn't just about what I was putting in my body. It was making sure she stayed safe with every meal. It wasn't deep. It was just something else to stay on top of. Another thing I couldn't afford to get wrong. Still, I kept running, and somewhere between fireman's runs and endless training loops, I found a small glimmer of pride. A beaming picture with the comment, I placed 12th in the Winter League and qualified for a trophy. It wasn't first place, but for a lad who never saw himself as an athlete, that little cup meant more than anyone would ever know. April brought a different milestone, one that had nothing to do with running shoes. 2 years ago, after finishing the TT swim, I made a promise to myself. I'm going to become a swimming teacher. And then, one day, in the middle of 2015, the long-term goal was finally achieved. Tomorrow, I get paid to teach my own class. That's what I posted. To most, probably just looked like another status update, but to me, it was everything. A goal, quietly set, a path, slowly walked, a promise finally kept. No big celebration, no applause, just a moment. A small, steady reminder that I could still follow through. But the truth is, the highs never stuck around for long. They never really did. By summer, the weight had started creeping back. So had the sugar, the habits. I laughed it off online, but I knew the marathon hunger wasn't just about food. It was emotional, and I was feeding it more than I should have. The training miles got longer. The mood seemed to get heavier. Tell you this for free, I'll not miss these midweek runs. 8 miles to do tonight. I said it online with a smile, but the spark was fading. It wasn't excitement anymore. It was grit, stubbornness, and a quiet fear growing in the background. What if I'm not built for this after all? And then August arrived. Just like the parish, preparation was a full-scale military operation. I'd thought of everything in ways I'm not sure anyone else ever did. Look at Mo Farah, shorts and vest. Me, I looked like I was going to war. Standing at the start line in Ramsey, bib number 75 pinned to my chest. I wasn't thinking going for finish times or glory. I was just thinking get through it. The first half was okay, a little bit awkward. By mile 9, I was clearly overheating, something I'd never faced in training. The half marathon runners were flying past me, and I could feel all starting to unravel. I grabbed a bottle of water and dumped it over my head. Game changer. It worked. I calmed down a little, and just as I was finishing the first lap, I saw my goals. That moment, that lift, it was everything. I turned the corner for a second lap, and everything changed. The noise disappeared, the runners were gone, it was just me. I'm not sure I've ever felt so alone. The marshals were packing up behind me, every mile marker was getting pulled as I passed, like the road itself was closing in. And in my head, the noise, and my head noise was louder than ever. You're last. You're a loser. Everybody's waiting for you. There were moments I believed it, and moments I refused to listen. It was a constant fight, mile after mile. I hate this bit. And then, in the distance, I can't do it. It gets me every time, seriously. And then, in the distance, I saw her. I don't know if it was mile 21, 22, but I'll never forget how it felt. Jess, a mum from the playground, just standing there. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. She was there again a mile later. Not by accident, but on purpose. Genuinely, I can't do this ever without this emotion. She gave up her time. She showed up deliberately because she knew I'd need it. And in that moment, it meant more than I'd ever be able to explain, as you can tell. And because she did, I knew I could finish. That's so raw. Well, I posted online on the way home. What can I say? That was one of the toughest things I've ever done. Cried so much, my teleprompter's got missing. I finished. Goal achieved. 5 hours, 25 minutes and 51 seconds. What followed was quieter and harder, and another lesson. The post slowed down, the weight crept up. The structure I'd lived for months vanished overnight. I was left staring at a medal, wondering why I didn't feel like a hero. Hate 2015. But it turns out it was just changing hands. So funny. Because in the quiet months that followed, I watched something I'd never expected. I saw her, my wife, the woman who'd ferried me around, bundling the kids into the car on every soggy training run, and cheered me on when I didn't believe in myself. She laced up her trainers. So hard. And on a cold November day, wearing high vis and determination, she crossed her own finish line. Our girl stood there, little hands clutching cardboard signs that read Mummy, beaming with the kind of pride I'd only ever felt for me. Breathe. And this is genuinely raw. I can't cut this out. It's silly too. And as I watched from the sidelines, roles reversed, it hit me. Doesn't look like I got a cold. It was never about the marathon medal. It was this, letting people see that starting lines aren't just for athletes. They're for anyone brave enough to say, why not me? I'd always thought I'd inspire a friend first, but standing there watching my wife, tired, smiling, Snickers bar in hand, it was like Olympic gold. Oh, Snickers bar in hand like it was Olympic gold. That makes sense. I realised the first person I truly inspired was the one that'd been beside me all along. From mind, I wrote it. It was realising she'd been on this journey with me the whole time. Let's go back a bit and read that again to you, so it makes more sense. Breathe. Those little cardboard signs said Mummy, but they spoke to something bigger. The quiet way our choices ripple through people we love. And that day, it wasn't about passing the baton. It was realising she'd been on this journey with me the whole time. That's when it clicked. 2015 wasn't defined by the moment, not the marathon, or Victoria's half, or even the medals in the hallway. It was momentum. And what it means to finally reach a goal you've chased for years. It was never the year I proved to myself that I could follow through on something brutal, physical, long-term. I got to the finish line. I kept going when it hurt. And for a moment, that mattered more than anything. But 2015 was also the year I realised the finish line doesn't fix you. It doesn't magically make everything make sense. The structure disappeared, the focus blurred, and without something new to aim for, I started to drift. That's what made seeing Victoria run her race so hard. Because she... Gosh. Because she was doing what I'd done. Steadier, calmer, on her own terms. It reminded me this whole journey wasn't just about proving... I can't even read it. The teleprompter's still going. It reminded me that this whole journey wasn't just about proving I could go the distance. It was learning how to live after the race was done. 2015 was the year I became a marathoner. But more than that, it was the year I learned that real work starts after the middle. When there's no crowd, no hashtag, just you, the mirror, and whatever comes next. Having watched Victoria run, I was keen to find something new, and it did not take long for me to get inspired by Becky, one of the lifeguards I was working with at the swimming pool. She was smashing it as a triathlete, just the push I needed to find the itch again. By January, I'd signed up for my first sprint triathlon, swimming, running, cycling, using the TT swimmers training, keeping my head down and getting it done. In April, I stood poolside nervous as hell, rocking my tri-suit and riding a borrowed bike. I didn't feel like a triathlete. I crossed the line with even 1:27 finishing, with a PB for the 5K. I tied second in the transition with the pro, thanks to some very clever thinking and hacking my way through it. I'd learned that day you don't have to feel ready. You just have to take part and enjoy it. But it was not the most significant moment of 2016, because then came Jess. Mid-March, she messaged me, "Liam, can you help me run a half marathon?" Jess, who'd been there in my darkest marathon miles, now wanted my help, not just as a mate, but as a coach. She brought Claire along too. 2 mums, 6 kids, 0 free time, but they believed in me and I had the know-how. We trained for Bella, an 11-year-old girl fighting anorexia. Early mornings, late nights, juggling life and laughing through it. By August, we crossed the Ramsey half together in 2 hours and 22 minutes. That medal wasn't just theirs. It was mine too. That's when I knew I didn't just enjoy helping. I wanted to be a running coach. June bought my first holiday race, the Cube at 5. Nervous smiles, mid-race grins, and fish and chips at the finish. I wasn't just chasing PBs, just chasing the joy of running in new places, and that's become a tradition. By September, liamrey.com was live, blogging, coaching unofficially, and plotting £2,017 in 2017 for Amy and Celiac UK. I was riding the wave. October, I'd PB'd the mile, 5 and 10Ks. I was in the form of my life. I was ready for the Sid Quirk half. I'd aimed higher. I posted, "Let's go for 2:07, maybe flirt with a sub 2. Race day didn't happen. I woke up with a weird cough. I sat in my car staring at a brick wall, writing another long post, full of frustration and disappointment, because I knew I wasn't fit to race. And it wasn't just a DNS, it was a gut punch. Because sometimes, no matter how hard you train, life pulls you off the start line. But instead of sulking, I found myself on the sidelines cheering the runners, watching Jess and another mum, Jan, smash their PBs. And I felt something shift. That moment, seeing their effort, their pride, it didn't feel like I'd lost something. It felt like I'd found something else. I wasn't defined by the races I ran. Not that day. Maybe not anymore. I was starting to see the value in helping others reach their finish lines. Not as a role, not as a job, just as something that felt right. It wasn't a big realization at the time, but looking back now, coaching started to feel like more than a side project. Looking back, 2016 wasn't really remembered for triathlons, blogs, or PBs. It was about discovering that helping others gave me purpose. I was meant to coach. I was meant to help people find their finish lines. But I needed to learn when to pause before I ran myself into the ground. Because sometimes the most important race isn't the one with the bib number. It's the one where you stop running from yourself. And that lesson? Yeah, that was waiting for me in 2017.